Night falls, and through the gloom we hear the demented song of a distant calliope as the most incompetent clown show in history prepares yet another show. Hello, freaks and freethinkers. This is Radio Ghost Town, and I'm your host, Deep Amber, coming to you from the relative safety of an undisclosed location. Tonight, we continue our ongoing series, The Serpent Whispers, investigating and exposing the greatest conspiracy in the history of the world. The question is, just how dumb do they think we are? Well, really dumb. The headline reads, American IQs are dropping, and here's why it might not be a bad thing. Message to the media. No, it's not good to be getting dumber by the day. You should know. There was probably a time when you could write a headline that didn't sound like the topic sentence of a third grader's book report, but look at you now. Well, freaks and freethinkers, they started it. So tonight, we're gonna make fun of them for a while, and I know the perfect place to start. The climate cult has been headlining the clown show for just decades now, but this little gem, 1970s, The Environmental Handbook, may have inadvertently set the high watermark for comedic farce. The back cover reads, "The crisis of the environment cannot wait another decade." Really? 1970? The first entry is the Smokey the Bear Sutra, where the Great Sun Buddha reveals his true form to be Smokey the Bear, who will illuminate, with a capital I, his helpers and put out those who hinder or slander him. Then there's his great mantra, and if threatened by advertising, I have no idea what that would look like, or air pollution, or the police, one should chant Smokey the Bear's spell. Yes, it says spell, and Smokey will manifest to bludgeon the enemy with his ritual shovel. The whole thing is so hypersensitive, self-entitled, and mentally unbalanced, it could have been written yesterday. Strange, isn't it, how straight out the gate climate hysteria and the occult are already nigh inseparable. It's a fun little book. On page 19, we meet the villains of the tale, Christians, of course, because we value human life and the climate gods want to beat folk to death with farming implements. On the subsequent pages, raging egotist Lynn White Jr. proves his analytical genius with the perfectly legitimate conclusion that a random politician's failure to be impressed by redwood trees means Christians and Jews are singularly responsible for turning the planet into a festering pustule of pollution, and missionaries, the monsters, are most to blame for not supporting the worship of demon gods in sacred groves. Paganism, it seems, is the cure for all mankind's ills. It must be true. After all, he identified as a Christian. Whatever you say, Linny boy, but you might as well have identified as a Boeing 747. Later that decade, the climate cult delivered a super fun documentary featuring scary music, moody color grading, and Leonard Nimoy of Star Trek fame, chosen no doubt for his ability to make pseudo-scientific double talk sound perfectly logical. The man looked straight into the camera and promised a winter of hunger and death on a scale unprecedented in all of human history loomed on the horizon. Does that remind you of the winter of death former Vice President Brandon promised us a couple of years ago, which also didn't happen? Coming back to the coming ice age, they said far north weather stations had recorded falling temperatures for the last 30 years, and climate experts predicted the planet would be a polar desert in roughly 4 decades. 70s, 80s, 90s. No, wait, don't think. Trust the science. Even though a few years earlier, in 1958, they were whining that cars and factories are making the atmosphere warmer. Just a few degrees will melt the polar ice caps, they said, and turn the Mississippi Valley into an inland sea, drowning the towers of Miami under 150 feet of tropical water. That was 1958. But less than 20 years later, the experts were swearing up and down there was no end in sight to a 30-year cooling trend. And then 2 seconds later, in the 80s, they went back to the first idea, and told us it was getting super warm, Polar ice was melting, and entire nations would be underwater by the year 2000. So not only does the science change, that sucker turns on a dime. It's dumb. The elites know it's dumb, and they know it makes us angry. They like making us angry. It makes them feel powerful. What they cannot abide is what their master so despises: to be laughed at. That makes them feel small and look foolish. So laugh, freaks and freethinkers. Laugh loud and laugh long. Now, clean air and wide open spaces do matter, but humans are not causing climate change. Climate is affected by our relative position to the sun. The sun, quick! Call Weird Willie Gates. Maybe he can block it out or something. Oh wait, he's already on it. Besides being a total legit medical expert and virologist and stuff, Bill Gates knows all science, and he got it by magic because he didn't learn it in school. And he knows how sunlight is useless, and photosynthesis is a right-wing conspiracy theory. And even though he keeps saying there's too many people on the planet and someone ought to do something about that, it's safe, guys. It's for our own good. The Supervillain Council of the World Economic Forum and Brandon's administration love the idea too, by the way, which should tell you all you need to know. Now, a quick recap of some climate hysteria fails. In 2001, the US Congress released a report predicting climate change would lead to the total eradication of maple syrup by 2021. The Great Barrier Reef was supposed to dry up and blow away because humans are the worst, but it's back. Greta Thunberg, whatever, posted that, I quote, "Climate change will wipe out all of humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years." That was June 21st, 2018, and she recently deleted the post. Al Gore, self-anointed high priest of the climate cult, has been promising an ice-free North Pole since 2006, but keeps moving the goalpost for some reason. 2013, 2015, 20 whatever, they've hung their hat on the polar ice thing, probably because most of us can't see it out our windows and they're hoping we'll just take their word for it. And yet, the U.S. National Snow and Ice Data Center reports that since accurate satellite recording of Antarctica sea ice began, there has been no statistically significant loss. In fact, 2021 was the South Pole's coldest winter on record, with 7 new daily lows. Look, a flock of truthers didn't flap our arms and fly to the Arctic to write a report. This data comes from normie scientists and government agencies. But why would they be honest about statistics that refute their own climate con job? Because hiding the data is harder than controlling the narrative. You see, despite the facts, the BBC announced that Antarctica ice, and I quote, hit a new record low. They might have said, no loss of polar ice evident, and that's probably a bad thing. It's a sham. They use diesel generators to charge electric buses. Fossil fuels have nothing to do with fossils. There is no consensus among scientists. Those who disagree are just ignored, as usual. Have you seen the hellholes where they mine cobalt for electric car batteries? Celebrities fly private jets to climate conferences, gleefully generating more deadly carbon in one trip than you and I will in a lifetime, and not one of them could be bothered to show up in Ohio, the site of a real crisis, because it didn't advance the narrative. The serpent created the climate cult to advance his end goal and uses the fear-mongering as mind control to manipulate the vulnerable. Kids today feel hopeless. They have no idea how long the experts have been lying. So we must tell them, as we relentlessly mock our would-be oppressors. Climate change is slated to be the next reason for lockdowns, to institute a worldwide social credit system, and usher in the one world government. But what they don't realize is, soon, the world will experience a radical change in climate, but not because of cow flatulence or car exhaust. First, the king of all creation, master of the universe, will burn away every trace of sin and sorrow from the face of the earth with holy fire. And then we will have a new heaven and a new earth. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain. It's gonna be all right, freaks and freethinkers. So we can look at the serpent's elaborate machinations and frantic scheming and laugh, because, say it with me, we win. Now, for the record, Satan is alive and active in the world today. He is your mortal enemy with just one goal, to destroy you, body and soul. The good news is we have a champion. His name is Jesus. Jesus is the only way to God, and the Bible is our only source for absolute truth. Together, they're our only hope for salvation. I'm Deep Amber, and this is Radio Ghost Town.
God is a shield for those who trust in him. So do not be moved by fear, but rather by faith in God and his word. And don't buy the lie. At Fly by Light Media, we choose freedom over comfort and truth over popularity. We hope you will too.
And you can buy these cool new Radio Ghost Town mugs and tees through the link in the description. Be sure to watch more videos.
Together we are Fly by Light Media, and we rise to shine.